What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Good morning. Good morning. All right, thank you very much for being a part of the show. Thursday, March 5th, 8 a.m. Guys, we're kind of getting towards the end of the season here, to be honest with everybody. Before we know it, regular season's going to be a wrap. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Thank you very much for being here. I mentioned this the last couple of days, so we are doing a little bit of a partnership here with AM 570 and with iHeart. So we're kind of testing some different social platforms that we're using. So shout out to everybody who's here. Obviously, if you're here on my YouTube, phenomenal. Appreciate you being here. If you're here through one of 570's platforms, thank you for being here as well. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out, being a part of the show, and certainly looking forward to talk a little Lakers and NBA basketball tonight. I think today becomes one of those. Today, Lakers are going to go through a stretch here where they're going to have this finally going to play all these good teams that are above 500, and it could be something that we could really start testing the Lakers with and see what the hell they're all about. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, let me give everyone a quick rundown what we got going on for the show today. And then, of course, as we do that, we'll take a look at some of the comments. We do have a guest today. I'm looking forward to have Trevor Lane on of Lakers Nation. He's going to join the show. So let's kind of get all into this. Big game tonight, Lakers taking on the Denver Nuggets. I didn't even get a chance here as making sure everything is running properly is to give a nice little cheers to everybody this morning. My second cup of coffee here. Lakers didn't have a game yesterday, so I thought I was in Cancun or something, having a margarita and Mexican food. Okay, they don't have one game. Relax. I mean, I felt like I was on vacation yesterday, so I had extra coffee this morning. All right, here's what we got going on for the show today. So Lakers taking on the Denver Nuggets a little bit later tonight. Oh, I'm looking forward to this matchup. By the way, a winnable game. I know. People are going to say for a quick second there, well, why is it so winnable? Part of the reason why it's so winnable is because Denver's still not 100% healthy. They're missing Aaron Gordon. Peyton Watson is out today. They're not sure about Cameron Johnson, but obviously still going to be a tough matchup. The thing I like most about this upcoming game for the Lakers is we really, really got to start seeing this team go up against squads that are better than 500 and see if they can figure out ways to, obviously pull out some W's, pull out some wins. So that's what we're going to see. Somebody's putting here in the chat, barometer game. I mean, listen, if there isn't a barometer game now, then I don't know what the hell to tell everybody. By the way, this isn't going to be the only barometer game. They have a lot of games like this over this next stretch. But Lakers Nuggets tonight, we're obviously going to talk about it. Everyone needs to step up. I have that in my kind of rundown here. To win games like tonight and to win games like the game they got coming up on Sunday against the Knicks and then Minnesota and then Denver and then 2 against Houston. I know I'm missing some teams in there. They play Indiana and Chicago in the mix of that as well. But to win games like that, you got to have a lot of guys step up. And the one thing that I think you can't have tonight from the Lakers is, hey, Luka went off, but nobody else did. Well, you're not getting a W. Or if you say, all right, well, Luka and AR went off, but nobody else did anything. I'm just using guys as an example. They need 4, 5, 6 guys tonight to play their role, to do their job. And if they're able to do so, then maybe we're in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes left to go, and Lakers got a good chance of winning this game. But a lot of this is also going to depend on what everybody else does. Trevor Lane, I mentioned, will join us about 8:15, about 10 minutes. Trevor Lane will join the show. Be nice to connect with him. Haven't chatted with him in a little bit. So we'll get his thoughts on this game tonight. 6 of the next 8, like I mentioned, are against teams above 500. And if you've listened to this show, and I know we've spent a lot of time talking Lakers basketball, but if you listen to this show, one of the things that is most obvious is you can kind of put yourself in any position. It could be great. Hey, it could look one way in the standings, however you want to describe Lakers basketball. But at the end of the day, if you're not beating good teams, then you're really not doing anything and you're not accomplishing anything. I don't think anybody's going to take you serious. So I think taking a look at 6 of the next 8, what is it the goal that the Lakers want to accomplish over that 8-game stretch that we would think if the dust settles and they have this type of record over those 8 games, or at least in the games, you're playing teams above 500, can it churn some heads? Can it make people think that the Lakers could be a headache in the post? Can something happen over this 8-game stretch where I think it could change the narrative? We'll spend a little bit of time about that. A lot of articles right now around the Lakers as well, about the future of the Lakers. I'm going to kind of read a couple of these, but some off-season rumors already, I guess you can say, heating up. How much time I spend on this, we'll see. But if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. But I know there's people already talking about the Luka, Austin, and building around them. Tim McMahon said something in regards to LeBron James is a guest in his own home. This is Luka Doncic's house. Another article out there talking about how the Lakers can resolve their center issue for next season. So a lot of stuff about the Lakers' future as well. We'll get into some NBA news as well. I will mention and shout out the Charlotte Hornets, who, if I'm right here, are they 16-3 in their last 19 games? The Charlotte Hornets. Remember when the Hornets demolished the Lakers at Crypto, and I lost it, and now I think maybe there's a little bit better of a story. Maybe it wasn't the Lakers' fault. Maybe the Hornets all of a sudden have become a really good team. All right, let's take a look at a couple of the comments here before we get the show started. Again, I appreciate you guys being here, and thank you, of course, for joining the show. All right, let's get another one here. Let's get some here. Don't be surprised if the Lakers beat Denver tonight. I'm counting on it. I will tell you this. They do have a shot. I mean, this isn't, one of those games where you walk into. If they're playing the Thunder on the road, then I'd probably have a different conversation. But Denver's beatable. And Denver also hasn't been this perfect basketball team over these last couple of months. And Denver's also dealing with, guys coming in and out of the lineup. So I think there's a lot of elements that I think come into tonight's game. And, I wonder just how much Lakers will give themselves a shot in this one. They've had moments, they've had some really weird moments against good teams against teams above 500. They've had, I'm talking about Boston, Orlando, that Phoenix stretch that they had where they lost all 3 of those games. This is really their real first test since that Phoenix game, which I think we'd all agree was an awful loss. What's up, Al? Today's a big game for Reaves. He has to step up. No excuses. Earn your contract, Reaves. I have attention on Austin Reaves. A lot of attention on Austin Reaves. And by the way, there should be. He's gone through a stretch, and, I know we've talked about it. Yesterday, I did a portion of the show talking about he should be coming off the bench potentially. And this is a good conversation I could come back to a little bit later, but I don't disagree with you on that one. I think there's something to say in regards to that. Let me get one more in here, and then we'll get started. I hated Murray ever since he tried to body Lonzo back in the day. Yeah, there was kind of a weird vibe between Jamal Murray and Lonzo Ball back in the day. I remember they were like running out the clock, and Jamal Murray, I don't know what he do. He like dribbled the ball around Lonzo and then kept going. This is kind of early in both of these guys' career. But Jamal Murray he's been a Laker killer. Let's say that, because he's obviously been a big time player in the postseason. And let's see what happens tonight. Lakers, like I said, will have a chance against the Nuggets. All right, let's get into the show. Thank you very much for being here. Quick reminder, if you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe. Would greatly appreciate if you can do that. And if you're on here on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter, X, whatever the case is, thank you for being here. If you can give us if you could subscribe with us on YouTube, greatly appreciate that. Definitely helps out the show, and want to get this out to as many Laker and NBA fans as possible. All right, let's get started here. So it's a fun one tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I got to be honest. There are a couple games these last week or so. Tough to kind of get up for a Lakers-Warriors game without Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Tough to get up for a Lakers-Kings game when the Kings suck. And the game against the Pelicans, maybe I was on my own on this one. I actually thought that might be an interesting game, and the Pelicans don't have an awful roster. You at least got to see some real talent on the other side, and the Lakers obviously ended up winning that game. They needed a huge fourth quarter surge. They go up, or it was 24-7 run, and to close out that game, they get the win. Tonight, we don't need any hype. The game is going to be well talked about. I think everyone's going to have a lot of interest to see, well, what kind of Lakers team is going to show up in this type of magnitude. I saw some quotes, and I don't know, I don't think they were being dramatic, but I think it just kind of tells you where the Lakers are. There were some quotes after the Pelicans game where I know Marcus Smart had said something to the effect of, a game like this can turn around your season. Not that's not his exact quote, but that's what he was talking about. I know the game against, or I know JJ Redick after the game against the Pelicans, he said that this is not the type of game that we, usually win over these last couple of months. If they go down by 7 or 8 and it's late, Lakers usually end up losing that game by 10 or 12. They don't come back in it. So I think there's this quick little, maybe tiny bit of momentum that came out of that Pelicans game. And let's see if it can transfer over to to Lakers and the Nuggets. The Lakers need a game like this much more than Denver does. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. The Lakers are still kind of trying to figure out their identity. I've heard JJ Redick say this, that they're still a work in progress. He said it after the last game. So we're sitting on March 5th, and there's still conversations about the Lakers are still a work in progress. I think the biggest question mark for the Denver Nuggets is their health. But it's not, are they talented enough? It's not, can the pieces work? It's not, are Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic good enough to go win an NBA championship? They've done it before. So there's nothing on that roster or that team. Now you might say, okay, hey, what do the rotations look like? They have to be healthy. There was an article today that the Aaron Gordon, that could be just a real problem that lingers, even though he could be coming back here pretty soon for the Denver Nuggets. For the Lakers, there's much more different questions and deeper rooted questions about the Lakers. And one of those questions are, can you beat any teams that are going to be playoff teams? Can you beat any squads that are actually going to be playoff teams? And that's part of the challenge for the Lakers tonight. I remember when the Lakers traded for Luka. And one of the first big tests that the Lakers had this was last season. And this was, I don't know how many games Luka played, but there was this big test that the Lakers had where they were going to walk into Denver, and it was like, what are they going to do with Luka? And Luka doesn't care about the history of LeBron and Anthony Davis. He doesn't care that the Lakers, in 9 playoff games against the Denver Nuggets, lost 8-1. What does he care? It has nothing to do with him. He kind of knew that, yeah, this is a completely new franchise around me. But I remember that game because Luka walked into Denver, of course, with the rest of the squad, and the Lakers just dominated the Denver Nuggets. And I think a lot of people, including Laker fans and people around the NBA, kind of looked around like, oh, shit, the Lakers they've arrived. This is Luka's team. Well, since then, the Lakers go out in 5 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves this year. They start off really good, but over these last couple of months are basically playing 500 basketball or hovering right around 500. And the one thing we know about the Lakers is they've really struggled against upper echelon talent, whether in the West or in the Eastern Conference. And this is going to be a stretch for them to hopefully change that narrative. So I think the Lakers are desperate for some wins against teams above 500. Because let me just say this. Let me kind of give you an example. Let's say they lost tonight, but then they beat Indiana tomorrow. Are you really walking in with any different feeling about the Lakers? I don't think you are. But I think this stretch of games, and I think going up against teams like the Denver Nuggets, like Nikola Jokic, like Jamal Murray, I think this is going to be the only way that you can start looking at the Lakers and say to yourself, hey, maybe they can get out of the first round. Maybe they can make a little bit of noise. Wow, I didn't know that they have this type of advantages over the Denver Nuggets, whatever the case is. Because right now, the storyline is very simple. The storyline with the Lakers is this. If they lose tonight, it's the same old story. If they win tonight, might turn to a friend of yours or text a buddy of yours, whatever the case is, and say, okay, that was interesting. If they happen to win tonight and then a hard-fought game against the New York Knicks on Sunday and the Lakers figure out a way to kind of, because it's home court and the place is rocking, and they win again on Sunday, then again, it's like, okay, these are a couple quality wins for the Lakers. But right now, what the Lakers have set up, what they've set up for themselves, the storyline, staying in that top 5 or top 6 in the Western Conference, but you're not beating good teams, I don't think changes the storyline. What changes the storyline for the Lakers is start beating some quality teams, and then people around the league will look at you just a little bit differently. And that's, I think, the thing that remains right now for the Lakers. I get it. They could be a couple games out of the number 3 spot. I think 3 through 7 right now is separated by 3.5 games. But you look into more of the details of the Lakers is how do you do against quality opponents? That has not been the strength of the Lakers. And that's why I'm looking most forward to this stretch of Lakers basketball right now, because this is going to be their opportunity to change a little bit of the narrative. All right. I know we got a lot of comments here. We're going to wait on those here for just a little bit. I want to welcome in, I mentioned Trevor Lane's going to be joining the show from Lakers Nation. Great to always have Trev. Always great to talk some Lakers basketball with T Lane. What's going on, Trev? How are you, brother?
Hey, Alan, doing well. Excited for tonight's game. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And what better person to have to talk Lakers basketball in such a big game coming up? Let's start off with this. I think this is the way I was just kind of setting things up. We could look at the Lakers and we could see, hey, where are they? If somebody hadn't watched one Laker game this year, they might see 13 games over 500. They might see, yeah, you're in 6th place in the West, but you're right there. You win tonight, you move up in front of Denver. They're right in the mix here in the Western Conference. But there are obviously details to what the Lakers season is. How important is this game, do you think, tonight for the Lakers? How important is this next 8 games where 6 of those games are against teams over 500? I'm curious to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, this is a team that is badly in need of a statement win. In my opinion, they haven't had a statement win since October. That October 29th, they took on the Minnesota Timberwolves and they got a big win. That was the last time that they had a win where we went, wow, they just beat a quality opponent. They had to play their best basketball in order to get it done. They've done a nice job beating the teams that they are supposed to beat, but they've also lost every time they've had a big marquee matchup and often lost decisively in those matchups. So that doesn't bode well for how long they're going to be able to stay afloat in the postseason when they're going to be seeing the best teams in the NBA. So not just for Lakers fans, but I think for the Lakers themselves, they need a statement win. They need a win against some of the top tier clubs to show that they are making progress, to show that they are on the right track. I do think this is a big game. Now, as you said, there's a lot of opportunities coming up in order to get that statement win. Even if it's not tonight, if they were to get a win against the Knicks, that would also be, in my opinion, a statement win, right? There's a number of these games coming up. But nonetheless, it would be nice to kick off this stretch with a win against Denver Nuggets team that you're right behind in the standings. You would move up to the 5th seed for the time being if you get the win tonight. You would also win the season series against Denver if you get the win tonight. So this would be particularly important if they were able to get this one. But there are going to be, a handful of opportunities here coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, last time they played, when I saw that Lakers would have the tiebreaker over Denver, and I was like, wait, how did that happen? But, obviously they did play when Jokic was still out. Lakers went to Denver and handled business. So they've taken advantage, and Denver's not going to be 100% healthy tonight, but they're going to have Jamal Murray. They're going to have Nikola Jokic. Obviously, they have enough talent to get a win against the Lakers. Let's play this out real quick. Let's say tonight you're doing your post-game show on Lakers Nation. I'm doing my post-game show on the channel. If the Lakers are to win this game, what would have to happen? What are things that are going to be important in order for that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Luka has to be an MVP level Luka. I believe they're 3-0 when Luka has played against Denver, and he's had some big performances against them. Luka's going to have to be massive, but I think the other thing that we're going to need to see is the other guys are going to have to hit shots. This isn't a game where they're going to be able to sustain Jake LaRavia's 0 for 4 from 3, Marcus Smart is 1 for 5. Like they're going to need guys, and it's not going to be Luke Kennard getting 10 shots shots from three. Denver's going to make sure it is those other guys. The other guys are going to have to step up and hit shots because that has always been the secret sauce for the Denver Nuggets. It's felt like every time they've played the Lakers, somebody winds up just getting absurdly hot, and oftentimes it's multiple players. The ball gets swung to whoever, and it doesn't matter. They're knocking down shots for Denver. The Lakers have got to have their other guys hitting shots. And then defensively, I think they have to try to limit Nikola Jokic as much as they possibly can, get the ball out of his hands as much as possible, and they're going to have to be in scramble mode when he does pass that ball out of, I think they're going to have to hard double Jokic. When he does pass the ball out, the Lakers are going to have to be in scramble mode. They're going to have to be really, really sharp in doing so. It is not an easy win, Ellen, and in a lot of ways, the Denver Nuggets are fairly similar stylistically to how they win games in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. They're just a little bit more efficient than the Lakers across the board in a lot of these different areas. So it will require the Lakers playing some really good basketball to get the win tonight.
I like what you said about the role players, because I think tonight is one of those games where we're going to have to be saying post-game, 5 guys scored in double figures, 4 or 5 guys scored in double figures, that there was this just great balance, and Rui had a couple of big threes, and Marcus Smart building some momentum of whatever he's doing. Kennard, like you mentioned, it's some help from the big men, whatever you can get from Ayton and Jackson Hayes, combine whatever those totals are. But it really will have to be one of those games where everybody contributes. And by the way, that's playoff basketball. A lot of times when you do win in the playoffs, I know we just want to kind of focus on the stars, but typically you won because KCP and Alex Caruso and I'm just naming off role players, right? But role players step up in certain situations, and that's usually how you get a win. Let's put the role players to the side for a quick second. What do you need to see from Austin Reaves? I think he's going through a stretch right now. I'd actually love to get your opinion specifically on Reaves, because he's going through a stretch where compared to what he was doing during the beginning portion of the season, he looks like a completely different player right now. And maybe a lot of it is rhythm. Maybe a lot of it is trying to kind of figure out his role with Luka and LeBron. But in order for the Lakers to have the type of night that they're looking for, what do you need to see from Austin Reaves?
Yeah, he's got to be a low turnover player. His usage is down. The turnovers need to follow that. It's okay if the usage is down as long as the efficiency stays where you need it to be. And he actually had a pretty efficient month of February in terms of scoring the basketball, shooting percentages, all of that. Had some shaky games, obviously, recently, but he can't turn the ball over. He can't be having the crossover in front of the man that gets poked free. Denver's not a high turnover team to begin with, so he's really got to have ball security out there for the Lakers. He's not getting as many opportunities as what we've seen in the past, where it's Austin Reaves running the show out there. Now that LeBron is back and healthy, we're seeing the LeBron minutes with the bench crew, because that's, as JJ calls them, the Banshees. That's a group that has worked very well, and we're seeing a lot of Austin paired with Luka, and he's not getting that 5 to 8 minutes a night where it's Austin and nobody else is on the floor with him, and then he's just running a bunch of high pick and roll and operating very well. That's what we saw a lot at the beginning of the season. So the ball isn't in his hands quite as much. He needs to be efficient. The turnovers need to be down. He's got to be able to knock down those outside shots. I thought for the first time in the last game, Austin against the Pels, he had such a rough shooting performance. We actually saw it, I think, get to him a little bit. We saw him hesitate to take a shot where he was wide open. He actually passed the ball off to LeBron on a wide open three, and then LeBron wound up turning it over. I think the play wound up going back to the Lakers. They were able to fight and get the ball back. But then he on a subsequent possession, shot a three that he probably shouldn't have. He seemed out of sorts. He's got to get into rhythm. We know he's capable of playing on or off ball, but he's got to have an efficient performance in this one tonight. That's what we need to see out of Austin. Low turnovers, high efficiency, and if those opportunities do come up, to be the player with the ball in your hands, the high pick and roll, getting into the paint, being that decision maker there, which I think could be an important piece to this game for the Lakers. The Nuggets not the best at protecting the rim when you see players that do get into the paint, and Austin Reaves is very good at exploding to the basket. He needs to be able to do that in the right moments and operate within the Lakers offense as we've seen it over the last month or so with all these pieces back in. I think he's still trying to find his footing since returning from the injury, and this is one of those games where the puzzle pieces have to all fit together. And so far over the last month or so, it hasn't quite fit the way that it did to start the season for Austin Reaves.
How much are you getting on your interaction with Laker fans, or just your own observation? Let's say Austin Reaves continues to kind of play the way he has been, or the inefficiency, or it feels like just the guy's a lot more effective when he's got the ball in his hands. Would you make a change? Would you? I've heard JJ Redick say this a couple of different times, that they're still a work in progress. I've made the case that I think it should be looked at to see if Austin Reaves, if he's better and the team is better coming off the bench, and maybe staggering some of those minutes and making it, when he is on the floor, he could be more of the head of the snake. James Worthy yesterday, or 2 days ago, post game on Spectrum, kind of had a similar type of feeling from that perspective. Would you make a change this late in the season, or is that also a little bit risky to kind of play with things on March 5th?
You mean like changing the starting five or something like that?
Yeah, and basically bringing Reaves off the bench.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I think we're at a point, Alan, where talent-wise, right? LeBron, Austin, and Luka. And I've had people tell me LeBron needs to come off the bench. I've had people tell me Luka needs to come off the bench, right? We've seen, and there's subsets of the fan base, obviously, that will have different motives for different things. But I've said, a lot of people say, well, one of them needs to come off the bench. Well, it's game over that's where you're at realistically. If you're at a point where one of your three best players at least needs to come off the bench because they cannot be on the floor together, then you're done anyway. You don't have the talent level to not be able to play your three best players together. The guy who you're replacing that player with is not going to be nearly as good, not as talented. You're not going to reach your ceiling at that point. So if you're at a point where the three of them simply cannot be on the floor together, and lately we have seen more positive evidence in terms of the three of them being on the floor together and it actually working, even if that doesn't mean Austin Reaves is putting up big numbers. But if that's where you're at, that the three of them have to be separated, then you're dead in the water as it is. You have to be able to get the three of them to work together and work together at a highly positive level. I want to see them, +6 per 100 with the three of them on the floor together. That's ultimately where the Lakers need to get to. And if you can't get there and it gets to the point where all you have to do is throw your hands up and say, well, then we cannot have them on the floor at the same time. Let's completely split up their minutes over the course of the game. Then you're lowering your ceiling to the point where you're not going to get to where you want to go anyway.
Well, I think the concept of Reaves off the bench, I don't think it's an awful concept. I don't know if it's waving the white flag, but I get what you're saying. I think there's a portion of this. If you're on March 5th and this is a conversation and you're talking about taking out one of your top three players and bringing them off the bench, that means you just got major questions. Things aren't working. I guess I would say this, I would say if they go through this stretch here where they start playing some of these teams above 500 and there's, they've kind of been the exact same way they've been most of the season, where they're not very impressive when they play a tough Boston Celtics team or even Orlando, or just go down the list of some of the losses that they had. Maybe that is kind of the signal of desperation mode. And listen, they might get to desperation mode, and we'll find out how the rest of this next couple of weeks plays out. But I know that's been a conversation, and maybe a little bit too late in the season to start testing some of this stuff out, but we'll see if that happens or if it doesn't. I want to bring up another player here real quick, because I'm not sure. It's not a crazy large sample size, but what have you made of Rui over this kind of stretch of games here where it feels like, listen, for the most part, since he's been a Laker, he has been a big part of the mix. Again, a role player, so nothing more than that. But what's been unique is he's coming off the bench. He had some really good bench games for the Lakers, but now not nearly as effective. What do you think's happening with Rui's effectiveness for the Lakers?
Yeah, I think and this does, I think, bleed into the Austin Reaves conversation as well. It's Luke Kennard. I think that's a big part of this, is the arrival of Luke Kennard. Rui's role on the Lakers was he was the best shooter on the team. He's not anymore. Now it is Luke Kennard, and Luke Kennard is providing even more utility because he can do other things. He can put the ball on the floor. He can score the 15-footer. Rui can as well, but Kennard is just such a sniper on that 15-footer. He's been really crafty getting to the rim, and he's also a ball mover. He's a passer on a level that Rui simply has not. That doesn't mean Kennard is anywhere near Luka or even Austin as a passer, but he is a ball mover. He is a guy who greases the wheels on the offensive end. So a lot of those touches where normally it would be a drive and kick out to Rui is now a driving kick to Luke Kennard. It's now Kennard getting into the action and attacking a closeout. Rui is still a phenomenal shooter. He's one of the best spot-up shooters in the NBA, and we've seen that for multiple years now. But really, he's been relegated to a few shots a night, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to do a lot of the other things: rebounding, getting steals, hitting the floor after a loose ball, like a Jared Vanderbilt or something who's been out of the rotation as well. So Rui's role, I think, has been diminished to a degree, but there's going to be big shots that come Rui's way. I think we're going to see that for the remainder of the season. He's going to have big moments in these games. Just those moments have been whittled down, I think, by the arrival of Luke Kennard, having everybody else healthy. They don't have to rely on the ball going to him nearly as much. So it's not ideal for a guy who's headed towards free agency in just a few months here for Rui Hachimura. But I do think the arrival of Luke Kennard has taken Rui's role as the go-to shooter on the team, and he's been supplanted by a guy who's just simply a better shooter than Rui is.
For podcasters like us, we might get stories around Deandre Ayton, and it might be a fascinating story and interesting conversation, and people get very passionate about it. For the Los Angeles Lakers, not exactly the best story on the floor. What have you kind of made of how would you describe Ayton's season? And then also, how would you describe, let's say, the last month and a half or so with Deandre Ayton? Because I thought he actually started off pretty well for the Lakers, and it felt like, hey, this guy's going to have a nice role for the team. Last week, a lot of the story about him was his quote about Clint Capella. They're trying to make me into Clint Capella. We got a little bit over a month left into the season, and I don't know what Ayton's future is going to be in the league. I don't, and I genuinely don't. I think that, we all assumed here if he was going to sign to his player option with the Lakers, then that means he didn't have the season he was supposed to have. What would you like to see the rest of the way, and what's realistic? Because I think sometimes you can want something from a certain player, and that player tells you all the time that I'm just not that. And, unfortunately for the Lakers, it feels like that's been the mix with Ayton.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what the Lakers need from Ayton is what he has not been consistently. So at the beginning of the year, we saw Deandre Ayton, who was very impressive, very effective. He was hitting that little 15-footer. He was just nonstop hitting that shot, the little push shot in the paint as well. He was knocking that down, and he was a real offensive weapon. Now, he's a guy who typically, like for a big on a Luka Doncic team, you're looking for somebody who can screen hard, roll to the rim, rebound the basketball, throw down lobs, and those are the things that Ayton does very inconsistently. Now, when his offensive game was going, it mitigated the concerns there to some degree. Like, hey, he's not the best rim protector out there. He's giving you a little bit of something, but he's giving you 15 points on the other end, and he's doing it hyper efficiently. So it's making up for not getting those, those super bouncy big man rim running types can do. It's making up for him not doing those things. Now, as the season has gone on, I think the lack of the hustle stats has become more of a pronounced thing for DeAndre Ayton, and the inconsistency has only grown to the point where the stuff he did early on in the season has only become that much more frustrating because we saw what he can do, and now we're just not seeing those things on a nightly basis. Now it's more common to see him, fumbling the basketball, dropping it out of bounds, jogging down the court, things of that nature that he's been known for over the course of his career. So my hope for DA is that we get the back against the wall, out there to prove everybody wrong version of DeAndre Ayton that we saw in October and November. And the counterpoint is, well, the Lakers need to feed him. The Lakers need to get him the ball more so he can do those offensive things. And I think there is some truth to that DeAndre Ayton can look more effective with more touches. Some of it as well can come just from seeing some positive regression when it comes to his 15-footer and shots of that nature. But I put most of the responsibility on Ayton himself, because when he talks about Clint Capella, what he's really talking about is that skill set That is the baseline. That is the bare minimum that the Lakers need from him. The offensive touches, everything else is just a bonus. What they need is him to focus in on all the stuff he said he was going to focus in on at the beginning of season. We're talking about media day. So DA is somebody who just needs to focus in on the little things. And if he does that, everything else will take care of itself. The offensive game will take care of itself. I think there's a better version of him we can see. I've got him as my X factor for tonight's game. This is the reason why you got him, was for matchups with Jokic, with the Wolves, with the Rockets, with some of these teams that have the true bigs that you knew the Lakers weren't going to be able to handle last year when Jackson Hayes was your starting five. So tonight is a big opportunity for Deandre Ayton. I hope he can get it going here. And all I want to see out of him is rebounding the basketball, protecting the rim as best as he can, running up and down the floor, putting in the hustle, do those things. I think everything else will take care of itself. I hope we get a very locked-in version of Deandre Ayton, because the guy we've seen over the last couple of months has oftentimes been getting outplayed by Jackson Hayes, and you can't have that going into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself is the biggest problem right there. Is what you just asked DeAndre Ayton to do is literally just show up to work. I mean, I don't think you're asking him to do anything. And the fact that you don't just get that by him showing up to work and rolling up his sleeves and saying, listen, at the bare minimum, I'm going to give you A, B, C, and D. That in itself, I think, is the problem with the DeAndre Ayton experience this year, is you can't get the bare minimum. And sometimes there's a little bit of, well, if you want me to do this, well, I need to do that, or you need to do this for me. And that just, I think, is the foundation of why DeAndre Ayton is such a frustrating player to watch, and why there's major questions of what's going to happen with him in the offseason, and if he's going to get some other opportunities anywhere else, and if he's able to, if you'd have told me before the season started that there isn't a guarantee that he can get a 2-3 year deal at $10 million a year, you'd be like, well, what the hell did he do this year? I think what you just mentioned, that says it all. Your expectations for him in tonight's game is nothing more than just showing up to work and rolling up your sleeves. And unfortunately, that's not a guarantee or a lock every single night. So it's really tough to depend on Ayton for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way. So when I hear you say that, Lakers will depend, and you're not wrong on this, but the more I feel like you depend on Ayton, the more it scares me. The more that, hey, you just get a good game out of Ayton when you weren't expecting it, probably is a little bit more likely. But we'll see what Ayton's able to do. Obviously, between him and Jackson Hayes, has given the Lakers some good energy minutes as well. Let me get your opinion on this. If, let's just say, Lakers lost tonight, how much of a concern would that be? The Nuggets don't have Spencer Jones, Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson, and Cameron Johnson. We'll see. He's questionable for tonight's game. I'm not saying that, the Lakers have to win tonight. It's still a tough game. They got Nikola Jokic. They got Jamal Murray. These are champions. They know what they're doing. But if there's a game to kind of get against Denver and to move up against them in the standings and to eventually grab that tiebreaker from Denver, it's a pretty damn good opportunity tonight. What does it say if, and I'll look at it from both sides here, what does it say if Lakers can't beat Denver with that many guys missing? What does it say about Denver beating the Lakers if they have that many guys that aren't in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, Denver's season has been one that's been absolutely riddled with injuries. They've been one of the more injured teams of the year. Aaron Gordon has been out multiple times. Nikola Jokic went out. Jonas Valanciunas went out. Right? I mean, it's been everybody on their team has gone out. They have proven that over the course of the season they can win games even when guys are out. They are remarkably resilient in that way. Annoyingly, from the Lakers fans' perspective, they sure. keep finding ways to get wins, and that is a credit to them. So if the Lakers were to lose this game, I'm not going to say, oh my God, they can't even beat Denver without all these players. No, Denver is still a quality team even without those guys, and that's a credit to their role players that have stepped up in a big way. As far as the Lakers, if they can't get the win tonight, it's going to be, well, this is just more of the same. This is just, yep, that's it. The Lakers are who they've shown us all season, and that's the team that when the level steps up, they can't step up with it. I'll tell you what I want to see tonight, Alan. I mean, aside from just a Lakers win, I want to see the Lakers play like they understand what a big deal this game is. There have been way too many times this season. And overall, when you look at the record, you're like, man, the conversation around this team is like they are below 500, that they're outside the play-in or something with all of the negativity. But again, there have not been those statement wins to uplift fans or give any sense of real hope. One of my big complaints about the team is every time they've come off of a bad loss, anytime they've had that big game where, okay, this is a measuring stick performance, they haven't gone out there and competed in a way that would suggest that they fully get or fully are accepting how big that game is. They've played more like it's just another game. I want to see a team they're coming off of a bad loss, which is going to happen over the course of the season. You're going to have some bad losses. I want to see that comes out the next game pissed off and it has a chip on their shoulder and has something to prove and needs to show everybody like, hey, that's not who we are. And I don't think we've seen a whole lot of that kind of fire from this Lakers team. I want to see this more of a playoff mentality from the Lakers tonight. I want to see a step up. I want to see a clear in terms of the hustle, the effort, the want to out there on the court. I want to see this Lakers team approach this as a game that they badly need to win, because it is a game they badly need to win. I'm not saying they're going to win or they're not going to win. I want to feel it on the court that this is a game that they want to and that they understand how badly they need this one.
That's a good observation, because I think let's play this out here real quick. They lose tonight, but let's say they lost. It's a one possession game in the final couple of minutes, and they just lost because Denver's also good, and you lost the game by 3. You lost 110-107. That's one way where, at least you could sit there and say that was a battle. It was 48 minutes. Lakers, like you mentioned, they came out. You could clearly tell this was an important game for them. That's much different than when you lose to the Boston Celtics. You're getting blown out at home, and there's no shot of winning that game when you're getting into the fourth quarter. You're right that it's also how you lose. Now, I'm not justifying a loss tonight, but I think there's a little bit of what's it look like? How hard are they playing? Do they feel like it's as important, like a lot of fans feel out there saying that, hey, this is a big game right here? Do they show some of them? They show some of that energy. I think that's a good observation there. Okay.
Denver's going to have that energy. That energy is going to be in the building. It's going to be noticeable if the Lakers don't treat this as
they'll feast on them.
Game.
Yeah, they'll feast on them. And I think this might be a little bit of a Laker thing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the Nuggets fans would love nothing more than to beat the Lakers. For Denver, because of the standings, because of the tiebreaker that we're talking about, that this is also a big game from that perspective. I'm with you on that. Look, I don't think there's going to be a question Denver will be ready. The question will be, which Laker team are you going to get? And that obviously lays a lot into it as well. A couple quick questions on the Western Conference, and we'll call it a day. And I appreciate you joining the show, Trev. Just, looking at the Western Conference right now, 3 through 7, I'm going to take Phoenix kind of out of the mix here. And the only reason I'm going to take them out, I think a lot of it more has to do with just their health. But I still like Phoenix, and I think they've had an incredible season so far based off of, what the expectations were. When you look at that 3 through 6, Houston, Minnesota, Denver, and LA, if you had to let's pretend both teams are healthy, how would you rank 3 through 6 in your eyes of teams that are most dangerous to least dangerous come the playoffs?
I would go Denver, Minnesota, Houston, LA. And I'm going to look at that from the perspective of, do the Lakers have a shot beating these teams in the playoffs? I think a lot of it comes down to who has the biggest weaknesses, right?
By the way, can I just say this?
Yeah.
I think, go the exact same. I would go Denver, I think, has got the highest upside of those teams. And obviously they're going to need to be healthy. Minnesota, more complete, if that makes sense, like more rounded. They know exactly who they are. Houston, I think, has got question marks. Lakers definitely have question marks. I think that's a fair ranking there.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that Denver and Minnesota could be flip-flopped, could go Minnesota, Denver. Like I could see an argument there. But the bottom line is that it's in the playoffs, it's about what weaknesses do you have that are going to be exposed? Because any weaknesses that you do have are going to get picked apart in the playoffs. And I think that Looking at those four teams, the Lakers have the weaknesses that are most exploitable, particularly when they're a team that sometimes can have turnover issues. We've seen recently since the All-Star break, they've done a better job there, but defensively, they have some clear deficiencies. They've got some issues there, and there's just an athleticism deficit on this Lakers team, a lack of switchability defensively, even if they are going to switch a lot of things. Houston has obviously their problems in the half court scoring the basketball. I think that will ultimately be their undoing. Their offense bogs down so much. They're not as good of an offensive rebounding team. They're still a great offensive rebounding team, but they were a historically good offensive rebounding team when they had Steven Adams. Now that they don't, they take a little bit of a step back there. So I think the half court offense is going to be a big problem with Houston. Minnesota can play both sides of the basketball. They just turn it off and turn it on at weird times this season. Denver can play both sides of the basketball, and in some ways is similar to the Lakers, but they're a higher level, I think, on a lot of things, particularly offensive efficiency, than the Lakers are. So I think those two teams have more or have less that can be exploited. And so that's why I'm going to rank it that way. Now, that doesn't mean every team is perfect. You go back and look at the 2019-2020 Lakers that won the championship. Remember, everybody was saying that team can't shoot. That team can't win the big games, right? Things are problems until they're not, until you find ways to overcome those things, until your strengths are able to overwhelm your weaknesses. So it's not like all is lost. But right now, sitting here in March, I think the Lakers have the most pronounced weaknesses that can be exploited and the narrowest path right now to victory out of those four teams. And I wish that wasn't the case, Alan, but just being realistic.
That's all we can do is just obviously say what we actually feel, not what people want to hear. 6 of the next 8 against teams above 500. They go 3-3 over those 6 games against teams that are above 500. You good with that?
Yeah, I think so. Especially if we're talking about I mean, the ideal for the Lakers is if you're going to lose one again, drop the game to the Knicks. Beat your direct Western Conference opponents. But if they were to play 500 ball against above 500 teams,
it's an improvement.
Yeah, I think that's more than fine. Now, of course, if it's you barely squeak out a couple of wins by a point or something and you just get demolished, like how you win, how you lose wouldn't matter and all of that. But end of the day, to steal a phrase from Dennis Schroeder, 500 basketball against above 500 teams during this stretch, I think would be a welcome sight.
Did not know we were getting a Dennis Schroeder quote in today's show. So thank you for dropping that. Trev, I appreciate it, brother. We'll enjoy the game tonight. Obviously, Trevor Lane of Lakers Nation, thank you for joining the show, brother. I appreciate the time. Appreciate the insight.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me, Alan.
All right. That is Trevor Lane right there. Good stuff. Dennis Schroeder quote. That's what I'm here for. If I want a Dennis Schroeder quote every morning, and if the chat is not supplying me with a Dennis Schroeder quote, then you're not doing your job. It's interesting. The 3-3 record against those 6 teams that are above 500. We were talking a little bit about 6 of the next 8 versus teams above 500. That is a win for the Lakers. It really is. And by the way, if I'm just using that in playoff terms, all right, that means then you're 2-2 in a 7-game set, and there's 3 games left to go. Obviously, it's not apples to apples, but that's kind of what you're looking at the Lakers at right now. Can you hang with some of these teams? I'm not even listen. If the Lakers lost tonight against Denver and it just came down to the final couple of minutes and Denver just executed a little bit better, but it's a game. It's a dogfight. It's going back and forth. You feel some of these Lakers' presence and everything else. Then I'll even, in a sense, take that. But here's what you can't see anymore with Lakers basketball. They're getting their asses kicked against teams above 500. How about what Trevor said, which I don't even think he's wrong in this. What's the signature wins this year? He said you got to go all the way back to October 29th when they beat a team in the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that was a home game. I don't know when they played San Antonio. I know they had a win against San Antonio that was with Wemby, but De'Aaron Fox was out. I mean, I can't remember all these games off the top of my head, but just the mere fact that we can't say, hey, when was the last real quality win for the Lakers, I think says it all right there. So anyways, really good stuff from Trevor Lane right there. And I think it also just kind of shows the importance of this game. And I think we're reaching the point of the season right now where each of these games obviously have a lot of juice behind them. And definitely looking forward to seeing what the Lakers are able to do tonight and see what they could do during this test. All right, couple shout outs here that I got to give. Let's give a quick shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. They are a phenomenal partner of the show. They are a team that is the best in the business when it comes to injury attorneys. WallaceWins.com/Sliwa. That's the website. If you go to that website, get a free consultation. So fill out the form. Anybody in the state of California, they can help you. So just use this as a resource. I don't want anybody, I hope nobody ever needs an injury attorney, but if something comes up, you have questions, you're curious, it's a daunting, intimidating process, just know you could go to WallaceWins.com/Sliwa, fill out a free consultation, or you could hit me up with an email and I'll make an introduction to Brad Wallace and his team. Happy to do that as well. WallaceWins.com/Sliwa, WallaceWins.com/Sliwa. Best in the business. Shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. And thank you, everybody, for supporting our partners as they are obviously a critical piece of the show. Okay, let's get some comments in here. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that want to give their opinion on the game tonight. So we're going to do that. Let's see what we have here. Where do I start? Jesus, where do I start? The most important matchup, I like this already, is Smart on Murray. That's a key matchup. Yeah, I can't argue with that. A lot of times when I think the Lakers play Denver, Jokic is going to get his. He'll get a triple-double. The guy will walk into the game and he'll already have a triple-double. No problem. That's going to happen. But I think the bigger question becomes two questions for me. Nikola Jokic. I'd rather have Jokic drop 50 than give 35 and 12 assists. As in, let Nikola Jokic get his, but what you really want to try to stop is, can you slow down some of these other players that they have? And Jamal Murray, that dude's a killer. Every time I watch Jamal Murray, I'm like, is the guy hitting another fadeaway, hitting nothing but nylon, hitting big-time shots, stepping into a three. It feels like the bigger the moment is, Jamal Murray likes that. Now, Jamal Murray, I'm not watching the Nuggets every single night, but he went through a weird stretch this year where a lot of clutch situations he was missing free throws, and Denver would lose because of his missed free throws. We'll put that to the side, is what it is, but he's had some moments there that he hasn't been as clutch. But I'll go back to this, the Jamal Murray-Marcus Smart matchup. Man, Marcus Smart has been such a great piece for the Lakers this year at times, not all the time, but at times. And I know JJ Redick has gone really out of his way of talking about how important he is to the team, especially after the last game. And Marcus Smart, his role is going to be no different tonight. He becomes huge. What he does against Jamal Murray is obviously, I'll tell you what Denver's going to do. If Marcus Smart is guarding Jamal Murray, then they're going to have so many screens that are on the ball so they could put Luka on Jamal Murray and try to take advantage of that matchup. We'll see what eventually happens. But yeah, I do think that's a key matchup right there. Let's get a couple more in here. Let's see what we have here. I think Luka slows the pace too much. Okay. All right, let's get a couple more in here. If Luka and Austin stay hot, then Denver can't stay at home on Kennard, who has proven he could consistently hit the open jumper. What a big game for Austin Reaves tonight. I mean, I was kind of trying to emphasize, interesting what Trevor was saying, like, listen, you take Austin Reaves out of your starting lineup. I don't completely agree, by the way. I push back a little bit because what he said was, if you take Austin Reaves out of your starting lineup, basically what you're saying is, yeah, we don't have a process that works right now. And you might as well just kind of call the season. Here's the problem with that, with labeling it that way. If hypothetically you took Austin Reaves out of the starting lineup, tell me, with Austin Reaves in the starting lineup, what indication that you have that it is going to work, that it's a kind of a no-brainer for Austin Reaves to be sitting in the starting lineup. I think I think the concept, I get the concept of, if you're making that significant of a change this late in the season, you might as well just call it a day. But even if you don't make that change, you may very well call it a day, because it hasn't seemed like that trio has worked together. And I think the numbers have supported that trio hasn't worked together. We'll see what eventually happens in regards to that. But Austin Reaves tonight, obviously such a key player for the Lakers. And we'll see what he's able to do when there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. If Reaves has another bad game, and listen, Peyton Watson not in the game. Some of these other players that would be guarding Austin Reaves in a game like this, kind of no excuse for Austin Reaves. He's had enough games out there where he struggled that this is the time where they're really going to obviously need something big for him. There's a topic here that I have as well that I want to get into. And again, I'll come back to some of these comments in just a second, but I appreciate you guys all obviously giving your thoughts and your opinion on the game. But let me just say this. 6 of the next 8 games, I got some stats I want to run through here real quick. So let me just, the significance of this game and 6 of the next 8 against teams above 500. So real quick on this. Here's 6 of the next 8 for the Lakers. They'll play Denver twice. 1 on the road, 1 at home. They'll play the Minnesota Timberwolves. They'll play the New York Knicks this upcoming Sunday. The Timberwolves will be on Tuesday. They'll play 2 against the Houston Rockets, both on the road. 6 of the next 8 against good playoff teams. Maybe not, a team that's going to represent the East. Maybe not a team that's going to represent the West. But you know what? I also wouldn't be shocked if Denver figured out a way to be healthy enough. Let's put it this way. If Denver and Minnesota made it to the Western Conference Finals, you shouldn't be shocked. I mean, I guess maybe I would be a little bit shocked because of how good San Antonio and OKC are, but they're obviously good quality teams. Knicks, if they made it to the finals, I wouldn't be shocked. They got a good enough team and a good enough roster where they can make the NBA Finals. This is kind of just a perfect situation for the Lakers to see who the hell they are. And I think what Trev and I said about going 3-3 over those 6 games, the 6 against the teams that are above 500, because they do have Indiana and Chicago that's in that mix as well. I take 3-3 in a heartbeat because at least it gives a little bit of a signal and an indication that you can start beating some teams that are quality teams and they're playoff teams. And the Lakers just haven't been able to prove that. Now, can you play just competitive basketball in all of these games as well? That's also going to be an important part of the story. Because too many times for the Lakers, they're not just losing to good teams. Again, their ass is kicked. So that part obviously is going to be a critical piece as well, something to keep in mind. Tiebreakers in the Western Conference. I think this is important to quickly point out here. Lakers need to win both games against Houston for the tiebreaker against the Rockets. Probably not going to happen, but Houston, they got 2 left against Houston, both on the road. The Lakers already own the tiebreaker over Minnesota, so they don't have to worry about the Timberwolves. They just have to have a better record than them or the same record with them. They need to win 1 of the final 2 remaining games against Denver for the tiebreaker there as well. So pretty actually decent position in regards to that. And because the Lakers lost to the Phoenix Suns without Devin Booker and without Dillon Brooks, the Suns own the tiebreaker on the Lakers. So they got some work to do. Obviously, against Denver, it will start tonight, but it just kind of shows the magnitude of these games coming up. And I love it because I think it's going to be incredibly fun to watch the Lakers and see what the hell they're all about. Now, if I'm doing a post-game show tonight and Lakers lost by 18 again, then maybe it won't be as fun. But at least it will give us a little bit more clarity on it. All right, that kind of gives everyone a quick idea here of, obviously – not just the game tonight against Denver, the magnitude of it, but really the next 2 weeks for the Lakers is going to be really fun to watch and see what they're all about. Listen, no matter what happens, let's get some clarity here because too much of the season so far this year, I think we have clarity, but I think the question is, can the Lakers change some of that narrative over these next couple of weeks? I think is going to be just as important of I guess a solution here of figuring out what or clarity in the sense of do we know exactly what they are, or is there another level that the Lakers can take it to? We'll find out over this next handful of games. Harrah Resort SoCal, a proud partner of the channel, a proud partner of the show. If you're looking for a staycation and you're located somewhere out here in Southern California, consider Harrah Resort SoCal. It's a beautiful resort located in North San Diego. It's between 1 and 2 hours of anywhere you are in SoCal, whether you're in LA, Orange County, or San Diego. I know obviously a lot of Laker fans all over the map out here in SoCal. It's a really beautiful location, over 1,000 luxurious rooms, great for entertainment. Go see comedians there, performers there, musicians there. Go there because they got one of the best lazy rivers and swim up bars in all of SoCal. Go there because they got Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, the largest in the country. Plenty of reasons to go there, and they're a partner. So it's a great way of supporting our sponsors on here. There's a link in the description. Copy, paste that link, get 20% off when you do book. There are some restrictions that apply, but if you want a staycation, if you want to be smart with staying within Southern California and avoiding the headache of paying for a ticket, round trip airfare, renting a car, all that stuff, you can avoid all that. Just head out to Harrah's Resort SoCal and use the link in our description. HarrahSoCal.com, HarrahSoCal.com. Thank you, and shout out to Harrah's Resort. Okay, let's keep rolling here. I want to read a couple of comments, and then we're going to call it a day. Shout out again to Trevor Lane, who was nice enough with his time to help us preview this big game against the Denver Nuggets. Also got a couple of topics in NBA stories, and then we're going to call it a day. Let's get a few more of these in here. 3-3 won't change your playoff standings. It depends which 3 games they win and 3 games they lose, right? If they beat Denver, you got the tiebreaker on Denver. So it would technically change from that perspective. If you win 1 against Denver, 1 against Minnesota, 1 against Houston, no, that could have a significance, or that could have an impact in the NBA standings. But I think there's a bigger story for the Lakers outside of the playoff standings. What does it matter where you are in the standings if you can't beat playoff teams, right? What does it matter if the Lakers are 4th in the Western Conference if they continue to be 4 or 5 games below 500 against playoff teams? So if they struggle the way they've struggled against teams that are going to be postseason opponents, what does it matter what you are in the standings? I think that would be my point. So I do think there's some significance behind that. All right, let's get a couple more in here. Why are we asking for Redick to be fired? He's the only coach in the last few years who's actually trying to coach these guys and let the guys know when they need to step it up. You know, it was an interesting stretch over the, and I disagree with JJ Redick, who said the sky was falling when they lost 3 games in a row. I disagree with him on that. I think, you know, the Lakers are 13 games over 500, but you got to remember, most of that damage was done over the first 2 months of the season. Since then, they're a 500 team. And what you don't want to see from your Lakers team is think guys are giving up. I don't think JJ Redick should be fired. I don't think JJ Redick's going anywhere for at least, he'll get all of next season as well. And then, you know, they can make a determination from there if they think he's the right coach for the future or not. But what you can't do is lose against teams you're supposed to beat, like the Phoenix Suns. What you can't do is get your ass kicked on national television against the Boston Celtics, and it feels like it's just an effort thing. So I think you could be critical about JJ, but I also don't think you have to completely overreact and say that's it. You know, the team's got to completely change everything. I think there's a way of doing that. All right, let me get through a couple, but it's a fair comment. I like the comments. I don't think it's wrong at all for people to be critical about JJ Redick. I think that comes with the territory. You're the coach of the Lakers. You know, I think, and I think there's ways you could defend JJ Redick about the roster and everything else. So I think there's ways both sides. And like I said, I'm not firing JJ Redick, and I'm also not firing him after this season, even if the Lakers are out in the first round. But, you know, it's also fair to be critical about that. By the way, and Lakers have a tendency way too often to just recycle coaches like it's nothing. Okay, a couple things around the NBA, and then we'll call it a day. Obviously, I'm going to be back tonight. Lakers taking on the Denver Nuggets. Tip-off's at 7 o'clock, so looking forward to that. There's some articles and stories here about the Lakers' future. Let's save those to tomorrow. I think it's a good time to talk about it. I'm most likely not going to have a guest tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe I get somebody from the Knicks to preview Lakers and the Knicks, but we'll wait and see. But I'm going to wait on some of those stories about the Lakers' future. The Charlotte Hornets, does everybody know that the Charlotte Hornets now, they started the season out 6-14, 8 games below 500. They're now 32-31. Yesterday, they blew out the Boston Celtics 118-89 in Boston. I don't think Jaylen Brown. Oh, no, Jaylen Brown did play last night. Okay, so Jaylen Brown did play, and they still blew him out. Hornets right now have won 6 in a row. They're 16-3 in the last 19 games. LaMelo, Con Knipple, favorite name in the NBA, by the way, after OG Anunoby. Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges. They're balling. They have a starting lineup here with Musa Diabata, if I pronounce that correctly. They're 20-2 when they start those guys, all those guys that I just mentioned right there. 20-2 when all those players play together. 10 straight road wins. What the F is going on with the Charlotte Hornets? I don't know what to tell you here. There was a really good game last night between the New York Knicks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I caught most of it. OKC looked like they were going to blow the game out. They're up double digits at halftime. Knicks make a run, had a couple chances to tie the game up. The bigger story is Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein both got hurt during that game. I don't think it's anything. I mean, we'll see here. I know left hip contusion for Caruso, left calf tightness for Hartenstein. So I think for both of those players in the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's all about just being healthy, obviously, for all these teams come playoff time. But that was a good matchup yesterday. Could it be an NBA Finals preview? It could be. We'll see what eventually happens. All right, let's read a couple final comments here, and then we're going to call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for obviously being a part of the show. Let's see what we got here. We can be first in the Western Conference. We ain't beating OKC, Spurs, Minnesota, Denver at full strength with this roster. I think that goes back to the standings won't matter for the Lakers. It's can you beat quality teams? I do think if they're going to win a first round or a matchup in the first round, they're going to need home court. So they're going to have some work to do in regards to that. All right, everybody. I think that's all we got for the day. I think we hit on everything. I think it was a nice show to do and a good little preview here as we get ready for the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets tonight. I'm looking forward to doing the post-game show tonight. So tip-off's at 7. Right after that game ends, I'll wait to hear from J.J. Redick. Once J.J. Redick talks and his post-game presser is done, I'll come on live. So probably about 15 minutes after the game ends. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Shout out to Trevor Lane. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to AM 570 and iHeart, who's nice enough to start adding some of the different platforms on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and everything else. So certainly trying to get more eyes on the channel and more people around some of our Lakers and NBA content. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your morning. I will see you guys tonight after the Lakers take on the Denver Nuggets. Have a great rest of your morning and afternoon.